Right, we're on, guys. It's me, Bram Cockerill, of the Taxman show with one of my best friends in the world is Bram Crossing. Here he is.
Great to be here again.
Yeah, it's, Bram, can we just listen? I'm sick to death of all these different people asking me about mixed martial arts. I haven't got a clue. All I know is about the Karate Kid, and he won, didn't he, with Mr. Miyagi. That's it.
Now it's all changed.
There's K1 and there's mixed martial arts, and everyone's getting mixed up with everything. So could you explain for us what the meaning?
Mixed martial arts became really popular in Japan in the early 90s, in the early 1990s.
Right.
And then early 1990s, 1993, with the Ultimate Fighting Challenge, it was called first, the UFC, now known as the Ultimate Fighting Championships. But the first ever recorded mixed martial arts fight in history was from, I believe, 1950 something, or 1960 something. Yeah, it was Judo Gene LaBelle. He's still alive now. He's in his 80s, a rough man. It was Judo Gene LaBelle versus Milo Savage. Milo Savage, a world ranked top 10 boxer, and Judo Gene LaBelle was a judo national champion 2 times. He'd grown up as a catch wrestler as well. He learned off all the old catch wrestling greats. His mother and stepfather were boxing and wrestling promoters. He's a legend in the sport of catch wrestling.
What is catch wrestling?
Catch wrestling is a no-holds-barred wrestling system, fighting system it came about in Britain, but many people think it started in Ireland, but obviously the British took it as their own. And it also went out to America, and it became huge in America. In America, they have a term, like when we were kids, you say say mercy, like to give in when you wrestle. Let's call it say uncle. But the Gaelic term was something like say uncle, like meant for give in, So then when people heard people saying it in America, they called it say uncle. And so they had this catch wrestling, what was it was a no holds barred. And they had
what would that consist of in rounds of?
Well, like for instance, nowadays I took on Big Nick Kajira, who was the then world champion from America. We had 3 12-minute rounds. It's a long time, to be grappling with somebody.
Yeah, it's a long time.
We've had 2 matches now. I'm going to be having a 3rd match. It would have happened last year, but obviously he couldn't fly in because of lockdown. So hopefully, definitely,
you were training for it.
Praise God, we'll do it this year. Yeah, so it's a good sport. What I love about catch wrestling is it's no holds barred. That's where the term comes from. You're allowed to do any technique, so face bars, neck cranks, spine locks, you name it, whatever's banned in other grappling arts, you're allowed to do it in catch, and you've got to beat them twice. It's a 3-second pin or a submission. And remember back in the day with the on a Saturday greetings, Rebel fans and all that world of sport, you see,
back in the day,
that was remember, that was a
real
real thing back in the day, and then it turned into something was what they call a work. You see, they have shoots, which is a real fight, or a work, and obviously we know that all combat sports have works.
Right.
Whether it's boxing, we've seen fights get thrown and whatnot. What happened in wrestling, it was like this. It was, say that we were to catch wrestlers back in the day, and you're from one town, I'm from another. I'd say, right, we're in your town, you're going to win tonight. Right. Sell the tickets. In my town, I'm going to win. And then it became where that's what they were doing all the time, because then they could do it every night and not hurt each other.
Yeah.
But back in the day with pro wrestling, before like it was WWF and all that, the man who had the belt was the roughest man. So we'd have a match behind closed doors. Whoever wins, they're going to win for the full tour.
Right.
But back before then, in America, it was all about the railroads when they were building America. Right. It was all about the railroads, and when they'd come in on the railroads, to come into new towns and whatnot, they'd have challenge matches for money, and the roughest man would always have a red feather in his cap, and then they knew that that's the roughest man, so then they'd get it on and they'd have fights, and it's all documented, so it's big. The history is big, but it was really big in the north of England, in Wigan, and as we said about MMA become really popular in Japan and America in the 90s. The biggest organization in the world before the UFC was Pride Fighting Championships, and the top man was Kazushi Sakuraba, and he was trained by a man that was from Wigan, Billy Robinson, God rest his soul. We were blessed to have Billy at our school in 2011. That man was an absolute legend, and he taught Sakuraba, and Sakuraba beat 4 main members of the Gracie family. The Gracie family are a legendary family. From Brazil, I used to go out and train.
The ones with Gracies,
a long time ago.
Yeah, for 6 weeks.
He beat Henzo, he beat Hayen, he beat Hoyce, and he beat Hoyler. That was it was unbelievable that they could do that, and they called him the Gracie Hunter.
Right.
And Sakuraba was an absolute legend. He was trained by the great Billy Robinson.
Right.
So it's an English fighting system.
How many different fighting styles is that? You were telling me about jiu-jitsu. There's different types of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, there's so many. Well, for instance, myself.
I remember him telling me a story. I'll get him to tell you this. It was
right now,
there was a guy who was tough as nails, and he could do this and do that. So he took him in, and he was just a blagger when he
Yeah, we have
basic.
we have people coming from town. Well, not so much now, but back in the day, we used to have people coming in, and the Gracies were really good with how they did it when they went to America. They called it the Gracie Challenge. They get like an old camcorder out and they'd record these fights.
Right.
Everybody thinks they can fight, don't they? We know that, like most people think that they can really, even if they never had a fight, they'll watch the boxing. Like in America, they call them armchair quarterbacks. Like, oh, I could do this, and I'll batter him, I'll do that. But not many people have actually had a real fight, And so then back in the day, people that did martial arts all thought that their martial art was the best. There was no real cross-pollination of styles. So if you were a karateka, you did karate. If you were a judo player, you did judo. If you were a boxing and wrestling, weren't even really classed as martial arts. So martial means war, and wrestling and boxing are very warlike.
Martial arts come from?
Martial is war, and like obviously it's an art. It's the art of war. But for me, boxing and catch are so. I like the mix of boxing and catch because back in the day, boxing and catch were kind of one, and the round would end when somebody was thrown to the floor. So it all started off. It's an English, the origin is here in England, and we're a warrior nation. The British Isles were a nation of warriors that controlled the vast majority of the world. Yeah,
but John, what would you say is the biggest thing? Is the K1 biggest martial arts thing now?
K1 was an organisation. It's disbanded. K1 was it wasn't a martial art, it was an organisation. So K1 was out in Japan as well, early 90s. It was an amalgamation of stand-up styles.
What does that mean, K1? I don't mean to
K1, I think it might have stood for Karate 1 or something like this. It was good because back in, kickboxing became huge in the 1970s in America. We had Bill Superfoot Wallace. We had, as if I can't remember his name, Benny the Jet, who fought Jackie Chan in one of these martial arts movies. The best, somebody says the best fight scene ever, along with Bruce Lee versus Chuck Norris in Way of the Dragon, where they're in the Coliseum. So K1 was good because, again, these organizations in Japan were controlled by the Yakuza, so they had unlimited amounts of money. So it was kind of, in Muay Thai, we can punch, kick, knee, elbow, and clinch is the art of the 8 limbs.
Where did the Muay Thai come from?
Muay Thai means Thai boxing, So, and that comes from originally Krabi Krabong, where it was with weapons as well. And then they also have Muay Boran.
You were doing the stick fights, weren't you?
Oh, I did stickers as well, quite a lot.
Like Rambo, you remember Rambo, but he was in the film.
I've tried almost everything. I love it. I just love the martial arts. But K1 was dominated by the Dutch, and the Dutch are the tallest, the tallest breed. The tallest breed in all of Europe, aren't they? It's not uncommon to see 6'10" men walking about in Amsterdam. And in Amsterdam, they have some kickboxing schools, MMA schools, where they have heavyweight only classes with 30-40 people in. And Amsterdam is relatively small, but they have some fantastic gyms. Chakariki is a great gym. Tom Harink, an absolute legend in combat sports. He mixed together a lot of Japanese karate with the Dutch, with the Thai style, and now it's known as Dutch kickboxing. So Chakariki Tom Harink was the man. He trained Badr Hari, who for me is the greatest kickboxer of all time. Badr Hari's now at Mike's gym, which is also in Holland. We have Kopp's gym, Bert Kopp's, a great gym. Bert Kopp's is a top wrestler as well as a striker. I fought his top heavyweight in an MMA bout from Poland, Mikhail Kita. Great gym. I lost one of those things, but that's a fantastic gym. Voss gym, that's a great gym as well in Amsterdam, all in Amsterdam. So there were the creme de la creme. Alistair Overeem won the K1 Grand Prix. So you do like an 8-man knockout tournament. They'd all fight on one night. I know Semi Schultz won it. Remy Bonjasky won it. A lot of top Gary. Not Gary Turner. I think is the only British guy that did it. He didn't when he won the British. They did a British Open. He won that twice. But I used to love Peter Hertz, a lumberjack. He was a really good kickboxer. But for me, Badr Hari is number one. That's disbanded now.
Is there a difference? Do you have an amateur like in boxing, and do you have a professional?
Well, it's in all sports, amateur. Really, professionally means you get paid. But for me, I think if it's professional, it's like, could you feed your family with it? Could you buy a nice house? It's one thing getting a ticket deal and a few quid. So I think professional and amateurs are loose too.
There's nowhere near as much money as there is in boxing.
But in Japan there was big money. I remember once hearing about a French guy who went out there and he was going to get £4,000 for his fight, or dollars. They said, throw the fight, go down in round 1, you get 40,000. We had a zero, and he was like, no problem. And he did it, and then he went and opened the gym. So that wasn't uncommon for that to go on. Now the biggest kickboxing organization in the world is Glory. But what's happened is through K1 doing such a good job, people started calling that style K1 style, where it's kind of a mixture of what was happening with kickboxing in the 70s and 80s and Muay Thai. So you can kick to the legs, you can knee, normally you can clinch for 1 second to 1 strike, but there's no elbows. So it's kind of it's a fast style, it's fun. I'd rather watch Glory than boxing. I get bored watching boxing, people nicking rounds for 12 rounds. Like, for instance, Badr Hari lost in his last fight, but he was winning. He could have just took his foot off the gas, but he went out trying to win and got knocked out. But that's the way they fight. The samurais, you know, no one's got an unbeaten record. Like, they're out there and it's kill or be killed. It's a great sport.
When I was going back to the 80s, I remember
kickboxing was big here in the 80s. Everybody did it.
But everyone seemed to fight for a world title.
Yeah,
what's all that about? Because they can't be that big.
Not so much in the 80s. In the 80s, it was Wacko was the, like, before K1 was big. Wacko was big. Like Marty Mandeville, my coach, he went out to Greece. Yeah. And he beat the top Italian. He knocked him out. And Mick McHugh, he went and got a silver medal. A Stockton lad who was my first coach in like 1986 or something. So that was that was kind of the top amateur. Yeah. In K1, there'd only be that Grand Prix. I think it was once a year. That was the thing. Just like now with MMA.
So that what's that like?
UFC is the thing.
K1
fighting
got different divisions as well.
Yeah, it was heavyweight only, I believe. It was over 80 kilos.
Has anyone ever won it from Britain?
Gary Turner qualified twice, I think, but I don't think he won a fight. It was dominated by the Dutch. It was dominated massively by the Dutch. Yeah, it was.
It's not one person for Britain. It's one who came.
Nah, you know, you see, kickboxing Britain are not really a strong nation for kickboxing. We're a strong nation for boxing because of Amir Khan. Amir Khan doesn't get credit. People say, "Oh, he's lost fights and whatnot." When Amir Khan got silver at 17 years old, he opened up a lot of funding for British boxing. When you look at the next games, Billy Joe Saunders was in those next games. I don't know whether he medalled or not, but James DeGale took a gold. I know Big David Price, he got a silver. The fella from Sunderland, who's done really, really well in business, Tony Jeffries, got a silver. Tony Jeffries has massive gyms now over in California. He's done really, really well. He retired from pro boxing. 12 fights undefeated, 11 wins and one draw. But then he went out to America. He's made absolute fortune. But that money would not have been there if it wasn't for what Amir Khan did with no funding. So there's big, big money in boxing. Judo, we do medal quite often with judo. In the Olympics, freestyle wrestling, Greco, we don't do well at all. UFC, because you know, for the relatively small amount of time that Britain has had a presence in the UFC, we've done incredibly well. Ian Freeman was the first man to ever compete in the UFC. He was the man that, he's the man that started. He went out there. He hadn't even been training for long. He was just a very rough fighter, man. You know, he said to me, he blocked punches with his head and he just gets stuck in. And he went out there and he beat some great men.
We the doors with Eddie in that years ago. We used to go see him.
Proper fighting man.
Really nice lad.
And the first time I heard about him, it was something called a cage fighting. It was in Tall Trees, right? When someone said, "That's Ian Freeman, he's a cage fight." I was only, I thought, cage fight? I thought, what's that? I thought, what? I couldn't believe it. And then I started watching some DVDs in Moore's gym. He used to have them on. Yeah, amazing it was. And then now he led the way. Now we have Michael Bisping. He's a UFC Hall of Famer. He won the championship, the middleweight championship. Obviously in Ireland, over in Ireland, we have Conor McGregor's won the belt. And there's a host of top British fighters now. Young Tom Aspinall just had a great performance the other night, beating Andre Arlovsky, an ex-champion. It's amazing to see. You know, I remember Tom from when he was really young. His dad, Andy, been around jiu-jitsu for years, a top black belt, a really good martial artist, a good man. He used to have him everywhere competing. And then when I first got with Heidi, we went to UFC in Manchester, which would have been about 11 years ago. And then his dad, Andy, said, "Do you know who that is?" And there's some big young lad there. And I'm like, "No." He said, "That's our Tom." I said, "No way!" I couldn't believe it. And then you could see that he was hungry for. He was there, soaking up the atmosphere. And now, fast forward to now, he's the top prospect in the UFC, and I believe he's going to become UFC heavyweight champion. He'll be the first British heavyweight champion, and I believe that Darren Till from Calbon also is going to be the champion. Mixed martial arts.
But the K1 finished now then.
Yeah, that doesn't. Yeah, that organisation disbanded. Now Glory is the number one.
What was that one? Our friend, your brother-in-law, Richard, was with the other month. He's the best one.
Oh, Khabib, yeah, he's the top. Well, he retired 29-0. Well, he's retired, but the UFC have not stripped him of the belt because they're desperate for him to fight. They want him to fight against George St. Pierre.
How good is he?
Amazing. You know, he's from Dagestan. He's grown up. You know, his father, God rest his soul, was a top coach for not only sambo wrestling but freestyle wrestling. And judo, he's grew up, he's lived it, he's lived and breathed it. There's videos of him 6 years old wrestling a bear.
You showed me that.
And you see what's
just getting
strong
stuck
about
in and he got bothered.
those Dagestanis, I love the way that they are. Right now, there's kids in Dagestan training 6 till 8 on the morning before school, 5, 6 year olds, and on the night, anywhere.
On the shield, you know, the
tough men.
Bare feet.
They don't drink, they don't take drugs. They pray 4 or 5 times a day. They're very, very, very disciplined men. And to be a fighter, you need discipline. Very. You know, and speaking about discipline, I remember Tefilio Stevenson. They say he's the greatest heavyweight boxer of all time, but a lot of people have never heard of his name because he was Cuban, and in Cuba you're not allowed to turn pro because of communism. You had to stay amateur. But he won 3 gold medals in a row. Don King was offering big money for him to come over and like defect from Cuba and fight Mike Tyson. He had no interest at all. He didn't have an ego, which is really good. But when Mike Tyson went off the rails, started crashing his car and all this and that, and getting in trouble, he said, "Can you see why I didn't want your American money? I didn't need it." And I love that because for me, fighting, it's not about money. It's not about titles. It's about honor, isn't it? It's about the way you live your life. And for me, martial arts has saved me. You know, obviously being saved by God as well, but that discipline has saved me massively. I can remember once being in, I just come out of hospital and stuff. I nearly died, and I was a young fella, and I'd lost loads of weight. And I was in a house with a fella, another lad that I knew, and then they got the crack pipe out, and it was like on the afternoon. But I had to go training with Marty. I just mentioned I had to go train with Marty. Like, I felt he gave me a chance. He was offering to train me, and I just wanted something positive. And then every time when they were getting it out, they were saying, "Do you want it?" I was saying, "No." It was going around them. They go, "Do you want it?" I was going, "No." And I remember I felt at the time, every time I wanted to say, "Yeah, I want the party." But I was thinking, "No, I want to get away."
To be the best at something you can't.
Without a doubt. And then I remember I ended up getting a phone call from saying, "Can you come and pick me up?" And then, but you know, this story, when you look, the man whose house it was, he went to jail for manslaughter. He got a lot of jail. And then the other fella, he went to jail for murder. And I thought, not long after this all happened, I thought, I wonder what would have happened if I'd have did that. You know, so it was like that was my saving grace, was having somebody go and train with him, because I didn't want to let my coach down, because he gave me a chance to train. And me as a coach now, I want to give my students the opportunity to do something positive. You know, for me, that's what martial arts is. I used to like the Karate Kid when I was a kid, but I love Rocky. I love Rocky. I used to love Rocky 2 tape. I used to watch it every morning before school.
My YouTube channels, you know, what we're on now, Cockerill. I've been training people, helping people with mental health and stuff, and getting people trained just with the elastic training bands. And they're going, "Oh, how the mighty from 800 pounds down to a training band." But it doesn't matter what you're using, as long as you give the resistance to it. And guess what? Who came on the other night and said the best thing, Sylvester Stallone, the best thing to train with is elastic training bands. Check out on YouTube.
Bodyweight exercises. I love squats without weight. I love
one-legged squats.
Yeah, that's what the catch wrestlers were doing back in the day. And to get back to catch, obviously I'm passionate about catch. In order to train with the old timers, before they'd even teach you a technique, you had to do 500 what they used to call sissy squats, like squats without weight, and 250 of the catch whiskers, they used to call them at boxing when we were kids, the Indian press-ups, where you scoop down, and then a wrestler's bridge for 5 minutes. Until you could do that, they wouldn't look at you, they wouldn't show you a move. So it's all about conditioning. And when I used to train with old timers in Wigan, we train full on for like 3 hours, 4 hours, and at the end you have matches. And if you win, you stay on. It was like conditioning's king. I fully believe if you're strong, if you're fit, physically, but that's going to make you strong and fit mentally and spiritually as well, because you want to stop when you train. You want to do, if they give you 10, you want to think, "Oh, if I do 9, they won't know." You know, do 11. It's like the fights are won in the gym, aren't they? The fights are won away from the bright lights.
300 pounds, you're too skinny, your legs are too thin, you won't be able to do this.
And it's just constantly
it's just an you've got to keep. When somebody tells you can't do it, you say to yourself, "I'm going to prove you wrong."
It's discipline, isn't it? When the man who just keeps going. Same with weightlifting. You see a kid who's skinny over the years, he gets bigger and stronger. And in jiu-jitsu, they have a good saying. They say it's not who's best, it's who's left. You know, that kid who just keeps going. I remember in Brazil once getting told, "Look, the man that becomes the best is the man who trains when his friends are going out partying, asking him to go out. The man who comes when he's got an injury. The man who comes when he doesn't feel like training. The man who comes when something bad's happening." I remember losing my dad. I was by his side on the Sunday when it happened. And on the Monday morning, I had a private lesson booked in. I went and did my private lesson. I did it because I thought we've got to carry on. We can't get pulled off track. We've got to commit to our goals. We have to.
When you train as well, it develops all them good endorphins.
It's a drug.
It's a drug and it's free. The drug, and you don't have a bad come down. The great thing about it, healthy body, healthy mind. So that's helping that. But we've got loads of people with my wife. Getting into the gym now with these elastic training bands. We're doing routines now, Bram, but people are saying, can't believe how hard they are. They really are hard. But anything can be easy, anything can be hard. It's up to you.
Yeah, we use them before training. We have a bit of a warm-up where we use the bands before. Yeah, we do something. I do something called Supple Leopard. It's a book. I got put onto it by watching a YouTube channel from Faraz Sahabi, one of the top martial arts coaches in the world. He's GSP's coach. And he was plagued by injuries. He's obviously a lifelong martial artist. And you only have to do it, Brian, for between 2 and 5 minutes on the morning. They're so simple, these exercises, but you know what? They're full body on top of the world. And when you look at it, a cat, what's a cat like? A cat's not stiff, is it? A cat's agile, and what a cat's doing, they're stretching, aren't they? They're jumping, and I think, I want to be like
when you don't just weights all the time, you big massive weights, he's tensing himself on your joints.
Good for that, isn't it?
It's good for that.
Like Eddie Hall, I think 90 kilos, now have a boxing fight, so there's a lesson to be learned.
So the thing is about the bands is good for people who are all getting older with like arthritis I've got and things like that. So
it's really good.
You can make them hard.
It's about longevity.
Just do more reps and just.
I want to be on the mat training when I'm 100.
Yeah, so do I.
So it's all about it's about longevity, isn't it? Definitely.
Keep fit.
And for me now, martial arts is a vehicle for me to help people with. That's what
it is. Yeah, well said.
That's
what I've trained. I've trained 43 years, and my knowledge what I know about training. It's good to help people, and you help people. And
remember, you got me very strong.
I remember, when he was 15 stone. He said, don't put weight on him. I said, you have to eat. He went, I want to have this, I have that. I went, that's not enough. I said, you've got to have 10 meals. He went, 10 meals a day. I went, you've got to have 10 meals a day. And then you've got to have 40 drinks. And you went, put 5 stone on in about 6 months.
Food's the most anabolic thing.
Everyone goes on about steroids. Don't need steroids.
They're just the icing on the cake.
They're the elite at the top of like Eddie Hall type of people. Oh, well, strongest man. You don't need them, especially when you're 15, 16, all the way up to 25. You're still producing them. If you don't stop producing steroids until you get to in the late.
When do you think you should take testosterone replacement therapy from 40?
I think what you should do
go
to your doctor, see what because you could still be producing quite a lot. Some people stop losing at 28 and use like 1 to 1.5%. And Dorian Yates he's telling people to do it. He looks really good, and he takes it. He admits it, and other people I know have a shot. But you go and see the doctor. They'll test your bloods and do it properly. A lot of people get it, and that's why you get a bit of belly fat, you get depression, you can't get that motivation. It's because you're not producing enough testosterone in your body. So go and get checked out. Somebody in the late 50s, especially, and you'll see what happens.
When you look, people like Vince McMahon who runs WWE, he's like in his late 70s. There's never been a man of that age that looks like that ever in the history of mankind. His abs are out. He's looking well. Obviously, he's a multi-billionaire and he's got the money for the best doctors, but it proves it can be done.
But the thing is, no matter how much money you've got, you still got to go in that gym every day, and you've
still got to work out.
You've got to lift the weights, and you've got to push yourself. And even if you're not lifting as heavy as you used to be, you can just drop the weight and do them slower and still get a better workout. Just as much. As long as that muscle's getting stressed, it doesn't matter if you're doing sets of 6 for 100 kg or sets of 20 with 30 kg, you'll still stress the muscle and it'll still work.
For me now, I don't lift anything over like 120 kilos because I'm not going to fight anyone bigger than that.
No.
So now I realise I'll use the weight rather than think, I want to do 1 rep lift, which is really good for strength, but I want to be strong for a purpose now, and I want to lift people that don't want me to lift them, and when they want to lift me. So
I used to think, I'll get on the scales, I'd drink about 3 pints of water before I got on the scales, I would leave my belt on. I'm 24 stone, nearly look. If I drink 2 pints of water, they'll be 24 stone.
You can see where that mindset comes from, because imagine this. Imagine if there wasn't weight divisions, in fighting. Which sports have weight divisions? Football doesn't, cricket doesn't, basketball doesn't. It's combat sport and weightlifting. Why? Because the biggest, strongest man
always wins.
The good big and always beats the good little in the same. It's like Conor McGregor's. Imagine Conor McGregor versus a big 18-stone man. What can fight as well? It's not going to happen.
It's like boxing. Great boxers are great, but you're 20 odd stone and you weigh 12 stone. They're not going to beat you.
That's why they fight to cut weight and get every advantage.
Well, they wouldn't have divisions, would they, if they didn't?
That's what Mike Tyson divisions. That's what made K1 good. They just all went in and they fought. UFC back in the day, but that was really like no holds barred, and they were just getting in there, and there was all types of fights on. There was no weight division, and I thought it was a lot of fun.
So where do you think the best fighters come from then? Is it like you said from
which sport or which?
You were saying.
I think wrestlers.
I looked at the K1 and mixed martial arts. They need the all from France and Italy and Holland and
for K1. For wrestling, well, the number one nations in the world for freestyle and Greco-Roman is Iran, Russia, and America.
Is the wrestling catching everything?
Wrestling's number one because if you look at the UFC statistically, the most champions come from wrestling.
Right.
Wrestlers hit harder. You think the boxers would hit harder, but the reason I believe that wrestlers are phenomenal, but when it comes to punching, is because in wrestling, you're in a lower stance all the time. Right. So they're built a lot of strength. They're like doing them what they call Tyson squats. Yeah, so when they can come up, and when they're used to grabbing another human and taking them down, them down, they've just got so much power. They've been doing this from 5, 6 year old. They're absolutely full of power. When you look at boxing, they're not really trying to hit hard a lot of the time. They're jabbing off and they're slipping and they're trying to outpoint. They've got a big pair of gloves on. And a lot of the time they're not trying for the knockout. Yeah. Whereas MMA is different. When you look at an MMA fight to a boxer, they're a different. They look like a different breed because they're a lot more muscular in MMA. Yeah. Whereas boxing, it's about doing like long runs and stuff like that. It's like a sprinter versus a long distance runner a lot of the time. Yeah. I think sprint, lift, jump. I like all that type of.
I trained years and years ago, and I did that high intensity interval training because long distance training for me was too boring and monotonous. Yeah. So I used to sprint 50 meters and walk down. I'd do that 10 times because I read about these racehorses running, and they were getting injuries on the beach. But when they started running up the hill, so when you think about if you run up a hill, you shock the toes, you're on your calves, so you're not putting that power. Because when you run, I think you're 2 to 2.5 times your own body weight. So it's a lot of running.
So good. I used to do that. I used to sprint the football pitch.
Really good. Did you think about you ever fight when you throw a fight? But
when you look at Limber Christie in comparison to Mo Farah, you see what anaerobic to aerobic. You see the difference, don't you?
I mean, and you're talking that every fight's different. No, you might be fighting one person, next might be 5 or 6 people, so you've got to be able to go 15 minutes. I mean, Peter O used to do 15-minute rounds on the back and things like that, and they think it's crazy, and you just know. But you're right.
Sometimes it does.
It does.
It's better to have it and not get the need.
Of course, it is. But you say to yourself, I can do this, and you're struggling. You think 10 seconds to go, and it's like 3 hours in it. It's really hard.
Fighting's hard,
I remember taking
anybody what steps in that ring cage on the mat or car park. It's even if it's like in a martial arts setting, it's still very hard, isn't it? It's hard thing to do.
Sean Flanagan, his son, pro football, and his mate Matthew. I can't be saying his name now. Lee Matthews. Played for Leeds, brilliant footballers. Got them in the gym at Mickey Flanagan's gym in Yarm. I said, right, I want to do a minute on the bag, did a minute on the back, minute press ups, minute sit ups, minute on the bag, minute press ups. I threw after 2 rounds, I threw the guts up. I went, Jesus, I can't believe it. And I went watching, I did a 10-minute round straight off when I was 22, still 100 times. They said, that's all you do, it's unbelievable.
I used to go to Rockcliffe Park, Middlesbrough Football Club used to get me to go in and work with some of the players, and the type of fitness we do, totally different. They loved it, but they'd be tired, it was totally different.
Yeah, because they're just running with the legs.
Yeah, they're maybe doing 15 miles over 90 minutes, and they're stopping and starting. Yeah, it's different. You've got to train your body for what it's going to do.
It's like weight training at certain people. You've got to keep mixing up. You can't keep just doing the same. I've gone to the gym and showed somebody how to train. In routine, you've got to change the angles, different weights, different sides, different.
How often would you have changed it with weights every 6 to 8 weeks? Would you change it?
Well, what I used to do is I used to do 4 sets of 6, medium weight, 3 sets of 10. And I always used to start off with 20 reps, say bench, and then I'd fit all my exercise and finish back on the bench and do 20 reps or 30 reps to finish off again. So you've got white cells, and you've got red cells, you've got fast twitch fibers, you've got slow twitch fibers. So you're hitting both. So, but people used to say, "Oh, lifting big heavy weights is not good for you. They slow you down," but they don't. It's heavy weights make you faster. So it just shows you these old myths sometimes are wrong, aren't they?
Yeah, well, back in the day, boxing coaches used to say, "Don't lift weights, will make you slow." Now
that's right.
Every boxer's
Richard Kilty squats really heavy. He was telling me all the big champions train really heavy because the fast twitch fibers pulls you through. I remember the runner, Brendan Foster. He had a race with Jeff Capes, and Jeff Capes beat him over a 50-meter sprint because the size pulled 26 tons, pulled him through.
Jeff Capes was a powerhouse. He used to throw the shot put as well.
That's right,
he was the strongest man. I love Jeff Capes.
Yeah, brilliant. We were kids.
He used to break budgies, didn't he?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he was a policeman actually.
He ended up with doors, didn't he?
Yeah, he was a security as well. Jeff Capes,
big lump of a man.
Yeah, but you've just got to. It's like you never judge a book by its cover. can see somebody. I've been in the gym. I had 10 stone. I've seen him bench over 300 pounds.
Yeah,
I was in the gym once and there was a woman there. She came in. She was with a little called Phil Taylor. It was Olympia. It was his missus were from Germany. She weighed about 8 stone and she squatted over 340 pounds. I think she squatted, and for 4 or 5 reps. And it just shows you. And then you've got lads who are like 20 odd stone, 22-inch arms, struggling to bench.
Some people that we could piss what look strong.
Paul Delap was one of the.
I remember him.
You remember the
big African American
lad, lifting light weights. Fantastic physique. So all you have to do is stress the muscle. Stress the muscle. I talked about. You don't have to squat 800 pounds.
Who's your favourite bodybuilder of all time?
Me. It's got to be. I met him at Newcastle with Bill Boyd. Remember Bill Boyd?
Yeah, Bill.
And I met
brought Tom Platts over as well.
I met him.
I used to train there when I was young.
I met him with Tom Platts. I met Tom Platts 3 times. I was sat in the gym and I was sat in a place to make you funny. He was competing, and his mate Wayne. And I said, "Who's he sat there with the shorts on?" I looked, and I seen his calves. Look, it's Tom Platts. I couldn't believe it.
He was renowned for his legs, wasn't he?
Phenomenal. So we've seen him, and anyway, we got to see him train with Bill Boyd in the gym, and he would.
Bill knew a lot, didn't he?
Oh, it's clever. I used to train at Bill's gym. Lovely man.
Used to give you a little book and write down all the exercises.
He was a great lad as well. Passed away. Les Orval, I'll kid you not. He could have been the value. Yes, he had a waist like that and his shoulders like a cartoon.
Yeah, he didn't look real, did he?
You think, well, what's going on here? He's just an unbelievable physique, a lovely lad, and another one suddenly gone, hasn't he?
Yeah.
But never be forgotten. But
Dorian Yates seems to have a new lease of life. He's happy. He's smoking the green. He's relaxed. He's doing yoga.
I like Dorian Yates.
Yeah,
he's got a great.
His mindset was fantastic, wasn't it?
But where everyone else was dragging on big flash cars and everything, he was in Birmingham in the dungeon. He had a little settee in his flat. He had no money. He'd go to sleep. He'd write every single thing down.
He did everything to get him to live in America.
He said, "Come and live." It's not. He'd stay in the freezing cold over here, and then come up there. And they called him the Shadow because when he came behind you, he used to cast a shadow. It was that big, and he was a very festive of monsters. He learned how to do it with a lad called Kelly Keys, and he trained
from Manchester.
He used to have all the doors.
He's a cut man now, isn't he? Kerry was British karate champion and a bodybuilding champion himself, wasn't he?
Really knowledgeable, and they had doctors and all sorts of help.
I think they learned a lot from Mike Mentor, didn't they?
Yeah, Mike was brilliant. Mike Mentor, high intensity. Well, that's why I copied off them in a way. I wanted to be strong. I wanted to be the strongest. It's not to be big-headed. You just want to
go to the gym. You see someone lift a weight, you want to lift it.
Of course, yeah.
It's good competition.
And then when you're squatting away, so I was squatting. I remember doing a 365 squat, and your father-in-law was there, and he did a 2,000-pound thingy when Kevin was there. So
I remember watching some of the videos.
Yeah, and them videos, what you see me now on there, I was 37 then. Like good
mad for this when you're 27,
when I was 20, when I was 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, I was super stronger. But I remember
was that before you were into any types of fighting and all? You were just like you were just into bodybuilding.
Yeah, I was into bodybuilding, but I used to fight because I worked the door. I was always fighting as a kid at school, and I was fighting all the time. Big family.
The bigger and stronger you get, did you just get?
Yeah, well, that was one of the lives. That was the first thing. Doing that when you grab something, you took them down. I was 13 years old, so like 43 years being trained. So I did that when I was 13. So Kev Kilty said, "You're one of the best of the next man." After just seeing it off the Karate Kid, you know. So
would you be letting people punch yourself out because you were tough? Would you just take a lot of shots till they were tired, then grab it older than once they were in range? Would you grab them and take them down?
I had really fast hands, as you know. But most of the fights I'd fight. So it was someone who was about 12, 13, 14 stone. I thought, you've got to get hold of him because he's going to dance around you all night. So he grabbed them, pulled them down. And every fight is like a game of chess. You've got to use different strategies. And but when you're strong, you're 20, no matter how good someone's at boxing, no matter how.
How did you take Lee Duffy to the floor?
Same. What happened?
Did you grab her on the waist?
Well, Kevin was there. He grabbed my legs and tried to pick me up.
He tried to take you down.
I ran at him, threw him into the wall. Put headbutted him, he went down. I took him down, but he said to people he's just too strong. His strength was phenomenal.
I used to be like a kid hearing these stories, like 13, 14.
Well, Kevin was there, wasn't he? He was there.
I remember chatting with Lee Harrison, another man what's gone now, God rest his soul, and he said to me that Lee Duffy knew about all of this, like the Gracies, the jiu-jitsu and all that. He said to him,
very intelligent.
He said, it's not going to be about who's the best boxer anymore. It's going to be about taking him down on the floor and beating him on the floor. And he knew. So was he really switched on to do with combat? He loved,
but when I had the fight with him, when I was going to have the second fight, I was trying to have the fight with him. He was thinking when he ended up phoning me and being friends with me. He said, what I was going to do, I was going to get you after you had big leg sessions. So he was clever doing your legs. Your legs are gone type thing. So he was whatever. Having a go then. But
when you walk out with your central nervous system smashed, and he was going to start landing big bombs. Go bright side. And
the sign books stay alive for somebody who's come to the door.
We've got books. We've got the Taxman, the original one. We've got You're Fucking Lucky. We have Cockerill, Duffy the Taxman and Teesside. So we've got plenty of books.
Sorry about this. Yeah, plenty of books. Taxman, Teesside, the new books out, and Bram's books. So yeah, the
new book coming along. That was the new one.
I think
the training, the Brian Cockerill.
Oh, the training one. We're up to about halfway through it. I've got all the routines and everything there, but what it is, I think it's a little bit of a waste of time bringing it out now because there's no gyms on. So we're going to wait for the gyms to then bring it out. So
go and do some book signings in gyms, maybe.
Yeah, and then go to the gyms. And
I like the idea of book signs. I remember Arnold Schwarzenegger did it, and he put education of a bodybuilder sky high, and then Jeff Thompson copied it, and he did it with his book as well.
Well, what people want to do is they want to get, how did you get that big? So from when I was, say, 18-year-old to in that from that 6 year, I put 12 stone on.
Amazing. So it was I watched your interview with, I think it was James English, and you've never told me about this. I loved it because you loved Geordie in that book when I was 10. I used to read it cover to cover, about Geordie McTaggart and how he was small, and then he sent away, was it for the Charles Atlas training routine, and he started stretching and lifting weights, and he had to carry his dad when his dad.
Bill Travers was the actor who played the part.
I've never ever watched the film.
Oh, the film.
I've read the book many times.
Yeah, Bill Travers.
Come away, my wee Geordie, and on this Clutchborough Jotes, I think that's him, isn't it?
Yeah, that's him with the cable. He's got
amazing. What a story that is. That just made me want to be strong.
It's about a guy, he's only a young kid, and he goes to school, and he's only this big, he's getting bullied a bit like I was, and anyway, I'm sick of getting bullied. He sends away, like Bram said, he gets this. Charles Atlas was there.
He thought him off, didn't he? He thought it was a con.
Anyway, he was doing the exercises, and he lived in a little type cottage with the stairs, and you see you heard him coming out, and then when he was getting older, bang, you could hear him come down. He was massive in the end. He ended up going to the Olympics as an Olympic thrower, hammer thrower, didn't he? He goes to the Olympic. Brilliant film.
I think it might have been based on a true story, mate. I think it really was an Olympic thrower. Yeah, it was amazing story.
Yeah. So that was one of the films I knew in the film as Victor Mature. Samson, when he pushed out there. I love that. I wanted to be like Samson.
I had that book when I was 4-year-old. I went to Sunday school and got it, and I couldn't believe it. I hated him when they shaved his hair off. Oh, yeah. And when he grew it back, I was like, yes. Yeah. He's ripping all the columns down.
Yeah. God could be watching the chances that he pushes the Coliseum down. Yeah,
people are obsessed in power, in size.
You know, when you go to places, you'll notice when you go to places like when I was at my biggest, I was huge. People were like, he's on big on steroids.
People take steroids and don't get big.
Exactly, they'd all be big if there was steroids. What about all them days? I mean, I used to go trading Christmas Day. In the snow, walk to the gyms in the snow when I'd have a key to get in, so I was a training instructor.
Discipline.
Just every day.
Can't get anywhere without
training twice a day, 7 days a week, sometimes 3 times a day, 21 times a week.
Did you have the split routine in the end? Would you do one body part in the morning, one body part
what we used to do, we'd go up and we'd go and do, like, say, chests, and then we'd go for something away for an hour or so, come back and again, give a pull in the gym. We'd lift in the gym, then we'd say tricep or something, and then we'd go over in the night and I'd do banking or something.
Did you like supersets?
Yeah, we used to do one where you go down the rack, you start off with 5K, go to 50, and go 50 all the way back down, up the rack and down the rack. And it used to come in a lad called Peter Ayton, Terry Cooper. There was loads of
Who were the men that you learned off to do with weightlifting?
Well,
how did you learn?
Well, when I went to the gym, I started at home. I got a little bench off my uncle and that. But when I went to Redcast, I stayed there when I was 18, and I went to the little chapel gym, it was called. So it goes there, and I called Terry Cooper and Peter Ayton, and they were like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Franco Colombo, because they're both for that time. Oh, they were awesome. I was like, like, oh God, I really like them too. I was like out here, and I was like that little skinny thing with 12 stone. So I started training with them, and in about 6 months, they let me train in because I was so dedicated, because it's easy to train free, like, you train, bam, 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 you train just in, so you've got your rest. So, and we used to just we do something like chest, back and biceps, leg, shoulders, triceps and calves. That's rest on a Wednesday.
That was the split.
Chest, back and biceps,
Tuesday,
leg, shoulders,
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday,
listen, guys, we were training 3 body parts and 4 body parts in one day. People are struggling to go and do one, so sure, when you're younger, you can do it. And we done that, then we swapped to something like chest on a Monday and back on a Tuesday. And you do bicep, triceps on a Wednesday, so that was an easy day. Thursday, maybe legs, Friday, shoulders,
In order to get strong, did you do forced reps?
Forced reps, like Mike Spencer, people like that.
Take the negatives down.
I remember having 700 pounds on a bar. I couldn't do it, but I used to come down with a bar.
That's how your strength goes up.
I'd have 700 pounds. I could. The most I ever did was 630 in the chapel, in the gym. Mickey Flanagan, you know, used to spot me because I used to have 6 plates each end, and he went, "Are you take the piss?" I went, "No, what a spot." He went, and people ask him, and he says to this day, "So I thought he was taking the piss when he said it." But anyway, he used to come spot me in the gym. But I started training at his gym with Kevin, and we used to have great fun.
Kev used to do bodybuilding.
Oh, Kevin was really good. He
good
competed everything, but. That's Kevin's son's Richard Kelly, who was an Olympic champion, you know, but we've still been friends, me and Kevin, since I was 22 years old. First met him, he said he'd never seen anyone as big as me in them days.
Did you ever meet Bertil Fox?
Yeah, I trained with him. I trained with Bertil Fox.
He had big biceps.
Oh, he was wicked. What happened is he came to the red car, Kenny Page and all them were there, and Tony Buckles and all the people who lived there. I'll tell you, Bertil Fox came there and he should have won the 1983 Mr. Olympia. Yeah. It was from, I think, Bradford.
Somebody out won it.
Yeah, he won it, and the line of Lebanon.
Yeah.
And just Bertil Fox coming in, like cannonballs, arms. And he was just like always smiling. He was in the yard, and I was training, and there was a lad called Chris London. He was a photographer then, and he used to do muscle and fitness or something, strength and health or something it was called. And he was like, he had 6 plates each end for deadlifted. And then he come over and he sprayed him with this water, and he never done the reps. He just stood to pretend to hold it
for the picture.
And then he got another bar where he's got 1 plate each end. So he took that picture bending over the 6, and then he picks 1 bar up with the plate each end and sprayed him with water. And this is better after 6 sets of deadlift. He never even done 1 set. It was just for the picture. Yeah, and he said, "Can you hold?"
Cockerill was the first man who wanted to really lift him for the photos. You know, I think he was the man who changed it. Yeah. I think that was the protocol, wasn't it? That just be closing when they're doing photo shoots. Yeah.
And then he was when he was doing these, you help people up when they do pull-ups.
Yeah.
I had to hold him on his legs and helped him on there. But he was with a lad called Marlon Dartland, who nearly got the part for Mr. T. He was a nice bloke. Yeah, he was a good bloke.
So you're a black fella, like Mr. T,
big. He was big, tall bloke.
I love Mr. T. I was a kid.
Yeah. Big.
Yeah, and he could wrestle as well.
He
was good. He was a fighting man.
He started off, he only started getting the gold. He found a little bit on the floor as a doorman.
Did he?
And he picked it up and he used to pick the gold up. That's how he started getting all his gold. Yeah.
He was Muhammad Ali's bodyguard.
Yeah.
And he taught him about putting himself out there. He said the squeaky wheel gets all the oil, and then that's when he became Mr. T.
Yeah, he was good. One of the films was great. I love the Rocky watch. We've seen
Rambo Rocky 3, didn't he? Hulk Hogan's in it, Thunder Lips.
Yeah, funny that.
WrestleMania 1, he was in it with Hulk Hogan. They were a tag team in it, Mr. T and Hulk Hogan, and that's what made pro wrestling really big. It was going to be called Hulkamania because of Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
And they changed it to WrestleMania, and then it's big business, isn't it now? $1 billion industry.
It's one of the biggest spots in the world, isn't it?
Yeah, people love it. It's like live. It's like a live stunt show, isn't it?
Do you think? Do you remember the Big Daddy days and all them and giant haystacks and all that?
Big Daddy was a very
Shelley Crabtree.
Yeah. So he was a Coldstream guard. Obviously, he got to be super fit. And he was an amateur wrestler, where they wrestled for real, and he was also a rugby league player, professional rugby league player.
Yeah.
But when he became really big as Big Daddy, and I remember he was on the front of like Woman's Own magazine and all that, and I was a kid eating eggs and this, that, and the other. But he did the pro wrestling because his brother Max Crabtree was a promoter and referee. Right. But then he wasn't that big. He wrestled the name as the Blonde Adonis. He wrestled out of Blackpool. Yeah. And he got really heavy, got out of shape, and then someone didn't turn up one night. His brother Max said, "Shirley, can you come and do this?" He said, "Look at the size of me." He went, "That's all right, you're Big Daddy." The crowd absolutely loved it. Easy.
And then you said giant haystacks in the back. It was a bit like them days, truth be told. It was a bit like a pantomime, wasn't it?
Yeah, totally.
And it go 1, 2, and up and all that stuff. And it was like
people. It was a big part of being in English, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There was only the 3 channels. I think it was 4 o'clock. It was before the football results every Saturday, wasn't it?
Used to be BBC One,
Grandstand on BBC One,
2, and your ITV.
Dickie Davies, greetings, Rebel fans.
3, yeah.
What I want to do, I want to bring back wrestling, but let them wrestle, let them have a wrestle, and have it on every Saturday where we can put it on here, you can put it on YouTube, people can watch it, because people want to see the proper wrestling as well. And that's why we use the name Legit Pro Wrestling, because wrestling was legitimate, it was the real deal.
Yeah.
And it's all, we know we do jiu-jitsu, judo, sambo, catch, CSW, all of it. We just chuck it all in the mix and we just get on the mat and we wrestle.
Yeah, you've got a gym, haven't you? Now,
Yeah.
As a coach, and where is it?
It's in Stockton. It's part of Sunseeds Ministries, and obviously right now we can't open because of the restrictions, but we're keeping it going online. I also work with coaches from around the world. I help them have catch wrestling programs in their own academies, and we have, when it's not lockdown, we have a monthly British training squad where people come from around the UK.
Yeah.
We're keeping really busy. We've been competing a lot now for like about the last decade, both Amin and myself.
Yeah.
Been out to America. Top Americans have been coming and taking us on here, and we're going from strength to strength, and we haven't scratched the surface yet. You know, this is only the beginning. We haven't even got out there first gear, you know, so watch this space because it's going to get bigger and better.
Right. Before we go, last thing, what you want to say? Anything?
Just like, thank you very much for inviting me to come on. I was chatting with my good friend Steve Dawson last night. He used to fight for me. He was saying, "Oh, I haven't, like, how's Brian doing?" I told him I was coming on today, so I sent him our old interview, and he was really happy. He loved it when he was watching it. And I just like to thank God for how you're living your life now, I just think it's absolutely amazing what's happening with you and Emma, and you're blessed, and there's many more blessings coming your way, and these for everybody as well. You know, you might be feeling down with this lockdown and whatnot. Don't let it keep you down. You know, we might get knocked down, but staying down or getting up's always an option. So get the fuck up and get on with it.
Don't give up.
I can't help but swear as well as what I can't help but swear.
I swear all day for the terrible language.
I can't help it.
No, we've had a great day.
Well, that's why the book's called "You're Fucking Lucky." I'm lucky too.
Yeah, but we're all lucky because we've all got Jesus. We're all saved anyway because we've got Jesus in our life. So yes, thanks everyone for watching again.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for having us.
God
thank
bless
you for being
Brian.
on my show, and I'll be on your show. So
definitely.